Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, says something personally, it's very warming to my heart, and I hope it provides your heart with a lot of more warmth. Imam Ahmad, rahimahullah ta'ala, says, he makes a dua. He's talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, but there's a wisdom in it. He says, Allahumma, kama sunta wajhi عن السجود لغيرك فصنه عن المسألة لغيرك. He said, Oh Allah, as you protected me from prostrating to other than you, protect me, notice the wording here, protect me from asking anyone but you. Islam came to dignify the human being. Islam came to empower the human being. Islam came to enrich the human being. And one of the foundational ways it does this, dear brothers and sisters, is by making you entirely dependent on Allah. So we fear none but Allah. Our hope is in no other but Allah. Our worship is exclusively of Allah or to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We don't need anybody else because our primary faculties and our primary modes of functioning has been completely centered around Allah. And when our fear is only of Allah, we no longer fear other than Him. And when our hope is only in Allah, our hope is no longer intertwined on other people who may or may not follow through. When our worship is only of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, then my dedication is directed in one way. This is freedom, dear brothers and sisters. True freedom is not the ability to do whatever you want. True freedom is when you break your needs of other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you no longer need the people around you. I don't mean we isolate ourselves. I don't mean we disconnect from them. I don't mean we have no social lives. But there's a big difference between working with somebody because you need them and you cannot function without them and you cannot really get ahead without them, versus it is part of life where you work together for other goals and you cannot do everything by yourself. You might be working with somebody, but in such a state your heart is free of them. Now your emotions are no longer influenced by what other people do. Rather, your emotions are completely centered around Allah. And since Allah is a guarantee for you, Allah never disappears. He never, fails to give. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala never fails expectations. Allah is always capable. And when this is the case, and when this happens, you acquire, dear brothers and sisters, you achieve true freedom. So as we as Muslims, we will never, ever put our heads down to other than Allah or for other than Allah. This is the spirit of the believer. This is the spirit that Salah teaches us. Similarly, Imam Ahmad is taking this a step forward, a step further, and saying, don't depend on other than Allah. And one of the ways you practice this is by not asking other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you want to really internalize this point, think of it as a type of etiquette with Allah. Think of it as, to an extent, not in a haram way, but in a spiritual way. It is disrespectful to ask other people and not ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah, the one who calls you day in, day out. As the Prophet ﷺ says, in the morning hours, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks to you as an individual. Hey, did you do any sins and you want me to forgive you? Ask me to forgive you, I'll forgive you. In the evening hours, the same thing. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks to you and says, do you need anything? Do you want forgiveness? Ask me for forgiveness so that I can give you, so I forgive you. And in the last third of the night, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala calls and says, does anybody have anything that they need me to answer? Anybody have any requests, any dua so I can answer you? Anybody want forgiveness? I'll forgive you. Allah is the one reaching out to you, but we know as human beings, we don't want to be asked of. The last thing we want is somebody calling and saying, hey, can you do this for me? Can you do that for me? It's our nature, dear brothers and sisters. So part of the adab, the etiquettes and the respect for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is that we don't go about asking other people and we forget asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Also, it is part of self-respect to only ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Again, I'm not saying it's haram to ask other people for favors. That's part of life. But when you ask them for favors, you do it because that's just the means to an end. While my heart is only truly asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My emotions are truly and only dependent on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's part of self-respect. When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created Adam, He didn't create Adam to depend and need the creation. He created Adam to depend and need Him subhanahu wa ta'ala. So do yourself a service. Bolster yourself. Bolster your identity. Improve it. Strengthen it. Enrich it. By minimizing how much you ask other people and maximizing how much you ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for watching this video. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reward you. If you found benefit in this video, then please like it, share with other people, and remind you of the hadith of the Prophet alayhi salatu wasalam, whoever guides somebody to good, then they get the reward of those who do that good, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. See you in the next video. Assalamu alaikum.